Instagram. What's Instagram? Promote on Instagram. 94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city and home of the Juan Castillo Morning Show. Good morning, New Haven. This is Jay Kemp, and this is Moving Target Radio. And, of course, with me is my brother, Remedy Sharif. What's good, bro?
Peace, peace, peace. Super Saturday.
Well, make sure your mic is on. Your mic on?
Peace, 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 peace.
No. All right, let's get it right.
Peace.
Yeah. Let's switch you up.
Peace, peace. Oh,
there you go.
Hey,
there you
hello.
Go. Hey.
Super Saturday, man. Lessons and blessings. Peace to the whole New Haven, Connecticut, Hartford, Bridgeport. Everybody listening. All the kings and queens, lessons and blessings. We in the trenches right now.
Red picked up that pen. You picked up that pen, started going back to the rhyming.
Yeah, man. I had to do
Feels
it.
good.
I had to do it. Had to get in, and it really does. It really does. Shout out to Doc Banff, man.
No doubt.
Black nerd.
On the intro song. Hey, I saw Lion King. Just so you know, I don't know if you're gonna bring Wiz or whatever, but I saw. Hey, did y'all see Lion King yet? Anybody see Lion King yet? No, not yet.
I actually just saw it yesterday.
Did you saw the original, right?
Yeah.
Did they not turn a classic into another classic, or you had a problem with it? You didn't like it?
It was all right. Personally, me, I prefer the cartoon because of the aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's just so hard. That movie was hard to do. Live action. I feel like.
I thought it was great.
I
bro.
thought it was a
I
great
didn't see
movie
it
too.
yet.
I thought it was great too. But I'm still gonna have to prefer that cartoon version, man.
I thought that's how I was gonna feel, but what I liked was just that they did everything that happened in the cartoon. They still did it here. They just did it live action. You know what I mean? But Nyla had some wavy lashes.
Yeah.
Beyonce must have said, "Look, I want my character to have lashes."
Oh, she did it. She
Oh,
put
man.
she put the stamp on it.
Listen, them lashes were waving.
They said these are jungle cats, but these are black jungle cats.
Ain't no way Simba was gonna say no to that.
These are black jungle cats.
Simba was like, "Look at them lashes.
Look at shoot. Now I really got to see it.
Can't wait to be king."
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So it's really great. I still recommend everybody go see that for the culture. So we have a special show today. It's actually a 2-hour show. So we'll be here for the first 45 minutes. We'll be doing Moving Target, and then we'll go take a break, and then we're gonna go into the electric drum, and we're gonna continue the conversation that we're gonna have today. All right. So a rising number of transgender women of color have been killed in hate violence homicides, according to the National Coalition of Anti-Violence Programs, which is coordinated by the Anti-Violence Project. A total of 22 women were killed in 2017 compared to 12 in 2013. However, the HRC notes that data collections about the murder of transgender people is often incomplete or unreliable because some deaths will not be reported and some victims may not be identified as transgender in the media. And make no mistake about it, all right? Many of these perpetrators are black men. While we might see some success for transgender people in Hollywood and other areas of pop culture, there is still work being done on a legislative level and the social level. And while we all may not agree with each other's lifestyles and perceptions, the space to speak your truth and experience should be offered to anyone seeking to do so. And any part of this, and another part of this conversation actually, is about getting a better understanding of a lifestyle and experience that I've never and will never really know. Conversations like these inform me and others of where our blind spots might be and the part that I can do to diffuse the violence being done towards transgender people of color. So here to talk about this is activist organizer for the part of socialism and liberation and staff operator for Trans Lifeline, Carly Merlot. What's up?
Jay, how are you? It's good to be here.
It's good to
be
have
here. It's good to see you. Hey, it's good to see Remedy. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Good to see everybody.
It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
I remember the show we did my comrade Ivy Stacklow back in November 17th.
Yes.
And that was a good, meaningful conversation, and ever since then it made me a fan of Moving Target. And
I appreciate
it's been
that.
great. It's always good to come on back, but now let's just get it going right here. First off, we're gonna change some vocabulary here today.
Yeah, and you know what?
Ditch that word lifestyle. This is not a lifestyle. This is my life.
Okay.
This is what I do. Doing triathlons is my lifestyle.
Right.
Running is a lifestyle. Working out is a lifestyle. Living my truth is my life.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, don't cheapen it like that.
And you know, it's funny you say that, because that's the first thing I'm going into is language and censorship. Because there is a lot of different vocabulary, a little like things that people need to be aware of. Like you said, that's a blind spot. I didn't realize
That's a blind spot.
that's a blind spot.
Right.
When you say lifestyle, it's like, hold up, no, that means that I'm putting this on. But it's not a lifestyle because this is who I am, so it couldn't be a lifestyle.
But that's what a lot of people believe. They believe, oh, this is just like when I'm walking down the street. Oh no, this is your little costume. No, this is my life.
Right.
This is my life. This is the thing that I had to hide, sweat, bleed, and bury for so long.
Yeah.
And now to live my truth, to live my authenticity, to live my truth. It means, this is something we're fighting for.
Yeah.
And that's why as a comrade and a member of the PSL, I speak out on trans rights. That's why, in fact, maybe 4 hours before I came here, I was doing a shift for Trans Lifeline. And I was getting calls at 2, 3 in the morning. Especially a lot of young people right now, because it's summertime, a lot of young people calling, and you hear this a lot. I want to come out. I need to, but my parents might throw me out if I do, or I might be out on the street if I do, or I might be out of a job if I do. We still have to deal with that in 2019. And not just in trans communities, across the rainbow family. We still got to deal with that it's 2019 and we're still dealing with that.
Right. So if it's when it comes to the language, I know last time you were here, I was like, listen, there's a lot of labels, identities. I can't learn them all. Do you know them all? You were like, nobody does.
But see, it's always changing.
Okay.
It's always changing. It's just, but also think of it like this, especially for black folk. Our vernacular changes by the minute. It's always changed by the minute.
Right.
Because when I was driving here, a song I was listening to, and this perfect example how vernacular can change. Remember the Double Dutch Bus?
Yeah.
That song built a whole new language.
That's true.
Always that. African American vernacular has always changed,
Right.
and it changes constantly. And so to me, especially as a black person, I'm used to this because I've always been around a linguistic tradition that's always constantly updating itself over and over again. And as far as the language is going to change. The language will continue to change because this, in many ways, the first recorded transgender people that we know of, recorded in the history, go back to 1500 BC. It goes back to at least 1500 BC.
What were they calling them then? What was the language for
they're still learning what they call them then. That first documented one was called Pharaoh.
Pharaoh.
It was
Really?
called
So they weren't, were they people of color?
Yes. Ancient Egypt. We're talking ancient Egypt 1500 years before the birth of Christ.
Oh, wow. So we're doing Kemetic.
Yeah. The ruler of Egypt at that time was a trans person.
Wow. Really?
That's how, yes.
I did not know that.
I have a good friend named Allison Hale, lives in Boston, Massachusetts, who does a seminar on trans history through these eras. These eras. And
how do they refer to? I mean, like, is this more in even in the history? Like, do you have to actually uncover that, or is it really known? We're just not looking at.
Well, it's not really. It's not known. There's so much about gender we don't know. Like we're just seeing in the last 10 years all the research that shows how gender has been colonialized.
Right.
We're still beginning to dig the layers of that because only in the Western European world has gender been demonized to the level it's been. every other indigenous culture around the world has embraced multiple genders, multiple expression of genders. But when these societies became colonized as part of the colonial experiment, as part of the systems of colonial control, that's when the binary came into place. And there's still a lot of research really starting to come out. This is research that's really come to the people in mass just in the last 5-6 years.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Especially for me, this has been a question on my mind for a while. What is the difference between sex and gender? I know that's been a conversation that's been talked about for a little while. I wondered if you have some insight on it.
Well, the way I understand it is that sex in the sense is the biological and medical portion of the program, whereas gender is more and more a societal construct. That's the simple answer. The complex but the complex answer, you still have scholars still
Trying to
digging
figure that
into
out.
that, trying to figure all those things out.
Well, let me ask you this: what, in the process of them figuring it out, who thought of the word cisgender?
Well, actually, see, here's the thing about cis. Now, I'm just wondering, did anybody take high school chemistry? Anybody
Yes.
take a
Yes.
chemistry class?
I don't remember
No,
it.
cis,
but I
and
took it.
cis and trans are are prefixes used in science. They come from the Greek. Cis means aligned with, trans means opposite of. I mean, that's the simple definition. For example, if you have a cis molecule, that means all the electrons and protons and neutrons line up. If you have a trans molecule, they all run opposite of each other.
Okay.
I mean, I'll admit it's last time I took chemistry was in
No,
college.
that breakdown was a little different. I never heard it in that sense.
But that's what it is. So when a lot of people say those are made up terms, no, they are not. They are actually scientific terms. And most people who've taken at least a chemistry or physics class in high school or college, you will know those terms.
So
You
why
will know them?
So why now?
What do you mean? Why now?
Why is that label put on it now? Why are we cis? I mean, because that's always been there. So why now? Why are we called cisgender?
Because here's the thing. Now we need terminology to differentiate one from the other. Thus, if you were born where your body says you're male and your brain says, yeah, I concur with that. I am male, for example. You're cisgender. It just means that your brain and your body line up. As opposed to a transgender person where brain and body do not line up.
And so as they were doing the studying and learning more about this, they said, oh, well, this would be considered cisgender and this would be considered transgender.
All it is a means to differentiate the two.
Right.
Now where a lot of people like lose their stuff and get an attitude it isn't so much because of the term, it is what this term denotes to certain people. And what it denotes to certain people, the idea that I'm not normalized anymore. My experience is not the default paradigm. It's not the normal. It's not the quote unquote normal experience.
That's funny you say
anymore.
that because the first time that I was
for example,
approached
they don't call it white art, white poetry, white literature. It's called literature.
right.
Poetry. You have to it's always been that the majority does not need the qualifier to identify itself. But now we have gotten to a point in society where we have said these are just as valid and normal experiences as any other experience. So everybody's going to wear it, and to me it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And to most thinking people, okay, it's no big deal. We're just differentiating. But to some people, and quite frankly, to a number of transphobic people, that is an example of we've got to hang on to this to hang on to control.
And not to get off topic, but I've noticed that on applications, we're the only group people of color that carry African American. Everything else says white, Hispanic, Asian, this, that. We don't, we're the only group that have to carry the American.
But to
Right.
your point, Carly, and Ram, I think you could attest to this. I know for me, when I was first told, oh, so it was for a organization I was working for, and we were doing a workshop on that and getting more discussion around this topic. So I was texted, and it said, all cisgender males, report to such and such for whatever. And I'm like, hold up. I didn't understand what cisgender was. And it was a feeling like, no, don't put that label on me, because what you just explained of now, it's not, just male, man, Now you say cisgender, there is a feeling almost as if like something's being taken away. Like now you're putting me into a box of some sort. That was a feeling of that I had, if I was going to be honest.
Well, it goes back to that saying that when you've always known dominance, and all of a sudden you have to be equal, that equality it feels like oppression. That's the system that's at play for a lot of people here, when the fact of the matter is nothing has been taken away at all.
Right. Everything's just been more defined.
Yes, if anything, we've added to ourselves as a human collective, because now we realize there's language for all of this. And I think the more language, the better.
So you identify as?
I am a transgender woman.
And transgender woman of color.
Yes.
And
I'm African American.
Right. And so when it comes to, well, what exactly is dead naming? Because we were talking about it prior to the show, and I want to just get into that.
Okay, dead naming is the use of the name that a transgender person was born with, because you get because when you're born, you were given a name. Mm-hmm. Everyone was given a name. I was given a name, but when you transition, people change that name. They change that name often to signify the gender that they are, who they are, to signify who they are. I mean, if you were assigned male at birth, obviously you don't want some dude's name after you transition.
You don't want to be called Jerome.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be called Jerome.
Right.
See, why gotta be Jerome? See,
that's just it.
Was that your name?
Now you know you're in a room of black folks. No, it was not. Now you know you're in a room of black folks. Somebody rolled out Jerome.
Right.
Jerome.
So,
but when you change your name, for example, that I did that this year. I did that a couple months ago.
What's that?
I have my legal name changed.
Okay.
I have my legal name changed. But if somebody refers to me by my birth/dead name, and there's even a lot of discussion about that in terms of in terms of the concept of dead name. Some people don't like using that terminology. Some people do. But the idea is, if someone comes up to me and called me by the name I was born with, I would be very upset. It would be an insult to me.
What is the issue behind using even that term, dead naming?
Because for many trans people, just using that name causes a great deal of trauma. There's a lot of trauma involved in using someone's birth name. It's the same deal with misgendering, even if it's accidental. And there's a lot of people who will get a pronoun wrong. I mean, there's a lot of people who get a pronoun wrong, and they don't mean anything by it. It's an accident, because there's no choice about it. We understand it's jarring for a lot of people when they've known you XYZ amount of years one way, and all of a sudden you've thrown this curveball on them. It takes a little doing for people to get used to. That's understandable. So once in a while people get pronouns wrong. I'll admit it. There are times I do it too. I do it too.
Do you believe do you agree with, and I want to get into, because we're talking about misgendering and dead naming, I wanted to talk about the legislation and policy that's being pushed to make it more of even in Canada, where they're trying to make it almost a legal thing, where if you misuse pronouns, you could actually be criminalized.
Jay, I'm glad you talked about that, because I think there are gross misconceptions about the law that you're seeing about these laws. First off, no law is going to throw you in jail because you accidentally said he when you should have said she. No one's going to do that. That's not what this is more about willful misgendering. And there's a difference. For example, you probably heard of the noted professor. I use noted in quotes and use the term loosely. Jordan Peterson, who in Ontario, you know, the guy
Yes,
who's doing all
yes.
the stuff on YouTube. I call him the hustler because the game is to be sold and not told. He's selling a game. He's running a nice little game on mostly insecure white college males who can't get a date. Let's just be real. Hey, can't knock the hustle.
Right.
Because you know, man's a professor, probably not making that long green. He found a revenue stream on the backs of people,
he
on
did.
the backs of insecurities. Let's just come on, being black folk. Come on, hey, being black folk, we know the hustle.
Most of
We know the
his
game.
viewers and listeners are 25 to like 45.
No, they're not.
white
No,
men.
actually, they're 18. They're about 18 to 27.
Oh, really?
He's going. Oh yeah, he's going after that incel money. Let's
Okay.
just be real about but let's just be real about the graft he's pulling.
That
But-
infamil money.
Exactly.
And what is he? What is he saying?
But he basically says, I will not. If there's a trans student in my courses, I will not refer to them as the pronouns that they tell me to use. I will use if you look like a dude to me, I'm going to say he. I'm going to say he, him. I'm going to willfully misgender you.
He's pushing more that from what I'm hearing him say is that he thinks the law that they're trying to use law now to police thoughts and that's what he's saying.
Actually, what that law is saying is you will be a professional. You will be a professional, and to me, that's what I tell people: you be a professional. I don't care how you feel about me.
Right.
I don't care if you don't like trans people, but when I'm walking in to a professional environment and say a place of employment, you will not misgender me, period, nor you will not misgender anyone else, and you will not do it willfully. You will not do it because you feel that you have the right to do it. And you know what? Technically, in America, you have a right to be a bigot, but you also have, but here's the problem with a lot of these people who feel my right, my free speech. You have the right to be a bigot, but the problem is they want to be a bigot without consequence. And sorry, that ain't the way it works.
Right.
Right.
It don't work like that.
And I'm sure
you got to deal with some consequences. One consequence is you might catch these hands. That's one consequence. But another consequence, and this is what's happening, you can lose your job.
Well, see, that's really what it's for.
And that's really what the major point is. The major point of these laws is to ensure that to say if you do this in a public forum, in a place of public employment or public university, you will lose your job, and two, you will not have the right of legal recourse against us because because we'll say definitively you broke. Hey, this is what the law says. You don't willfully misgender. You broke that law. So if you fine, you can try and take us to court, but all we're gonna do is stand. It's saying is we're gonna stand on the law.
But at this point, there is no law in place officially to protect to be able to support situations where somebody misgenders you in employment.
Yes,
or discriminates.
But there is a legal process by where, for example, like in this state, there is a legal process by where equal employment opportunity laws will apply in that situation. Hostile workplace.
Okay.
Now, granted, you got to go to court and go through all the rigmarole, and you got to prove it, and et cetera, et cetera. And those cases are difficult to prove, but there is a process. All they're doing in Ontario is taking some of that rigmarole away and saying, no.
Let's just make it a law.
We're going to investigate it, but it's a law. If we find it, end of discussion.
Yeah.
There's no he said, she said at this point.
Right.
And now misgendering on other levels. I mean, we're talking about employment, but let's talk about how misgendering could actually really be deadly, and sometimes leave. I know some cases like murder victims unsolved because of that.
Yes, because there's something I say somewhat often is that, especially since we're talking about since we're directly talking about something near to my heart, we've had 15 this year so far.
Murders?
Yes.
In Connecticut?
No, in the country.
In the country.
And you've had, and in a global context, it's even more. For example, you think things are difficult in the United States. Try being a trans woman of color in Brazil, where you've already had 5 times that number killed. And the thing, like what you were talking about, many of these cases are not, or many of these are the cases that we know of. I mean, there's something, I tell people this is that, like, every November there's a day called Transgender Day of Remembrance, and that's the day when we focus in on all those trans people who were killed violently in hate crimes, not just here but around the world. And the one theme that you see is that you see so many names and you see so many people without names. And I mean, you go to nations like Brazil, for example, last year there was something like 200 plus, of which perhaps
200 plus murders?
Yes. Of which I would estimate that 2/3 of those were without names.
Wow.
And how is it determined whether they were killed solely because they were transgender? How do they make that determination?
A lot of that determination has come from sources out from non-governmental organizations, human rights organizations. I mean, there's still a lot of information gaps but also just activists on the ground in a lot of these countries.
They know what's going on.
They know what's going on, and even more so now that you have a regime that's openly anti-LGBTQ in power in that country. The Bolsonaro regime has said it openly. We're going to roll back all these rights. Bolsonaro said it himself. If my son was gay, I'd have him shot.
Wow.
So the activists that are on the ground,
Yes.
what percentage of them are transgender? Are there any cis males or cis females that are activists in the transgender movement?
There are. I mean, across the world, there's bound to be some. I work with a few here locally. I within the Party for Socialism and Liberation. There's a lot of cis people within our ranks who are working and speaking out. And it doesn't take much to work and speak out. All you gotta do is just give a damn for somebody. I mean, and that's the thing. We need more cis folks speaking out, and especially in our community. We need more cis and black folks speaking out for our rainbow family. We need to be a united black family. If we're going to say Black Lives Matter, that means every black life has to matter.
See,
they all have to matter.
Absolutely, but I asked that because a lot of times, especially in criminal investigations and things like that, information gets tainted. So when we're looking at, and that's why, Jay kind of asked that question, because when we look at these murders and nobody should be murdered, for any reason at all, bottom line. But when we look at a lot of these things, it's like you can have some sort of understanding with a man that is a heterosexual and a transgender woman doesn't reveal that they're transgender. Wait.
Come on, Remedy. Come on.
No,
I
have to.
Come on now.
Well,
No. We're gonna stop you right here. No.
I'm just
I'm
asking.
not letting you go.
Well, what are you? Well, I want to know exactly.
Boss.
What are you? Are you asking or making more of a statement that can you understand it? Like what exactly?
Yeah, no, I'm asking. Because I'm wondering, like we do know, information gets lost in translation a lot. So that's why I asked, are there any people that are cis people that are actually, because to me, no, if you said it was how many in Brazil, that's just totally out of order. But I'm just wondering
I think one's out of order. I think the fact that we had 29 last year and 27 look like me is out of order.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, what we saw in Dallas just a couple months ago is way out of order. Yeah. It's way out of order. And I kind of know where the question. Let me make sure I got your question right.
Yeah.
Are you saying, for example, the dude who doesn't know, the dude who didn't know?
Right.
Okay. First off, there's no justification for murder.
Absolutely not.
And thankfully, for example, in Connecticut, just a few weeks ago, the bill was signed that made the use of the trans/gay panic defense in this state illegal for a defense attorney.
Good. Illegal.
And that more needs to be done. But unfortunately, and still in 45 states, that still can be used as a legitimate defense against a murder. Oh, they didn't tell me I got tricked and I lost my mind and killed somebody. No. Right. I had to stop you right there because we hear that time and time again. She didn't tell she didn't tell this, she didn't tell that. It doesn't matter what she told or what
But
she
not-
didn't told.
but-
You don't kill anybody.
But not asking that to justify it, but asking that to understand if that is something that how much of that is very real. What percentage of that is
Unfortunately-
is very real.
Unfortunately, it's very real. But let's
Right.
look at the cause of why it's real.
Right.
Because right now there's a lot of talk about this because recently in Vox there was an article about this.
Mm.
No, wait, not in Vox, but in Vice there was an article about this that came out a few days ago.
Okay.
That talks about cisgender men who love trans women. And there's still that measure of shame and that measure of idea of that idea. It goes back to the same old idea.
So when they get caught-
that a trans woman is really a dude in a dress,
So
which is insulting. It's insulting. It's hurtful, and it's getting people killed.
I think another thing that's also getting people killed is the fact that black men, cisgender, alpha, heterosexual males like us, need to create some type of, whether you want to call it space or some. I would want brothers to understand that, look, I might not agree.
Right.
I might not condone, but if that's who you are, that doesn't mean I'm going to treat you less. That doesn't
Right,
mean I'm
right.
going to look at you a certain way
Right.
and make that because the fact that black men are not going to show that, they're not going to feel that way. They get into these
But Jay-
situations.
Yeah, but Jay, one
Where
step
they end
farther.
up-
One step farther. Why does this have to be something that needs to be condoned? What's going on? What when we say that, what are we saying
Well,
here?
let me say. I'll say what I'm saying. I'll say what
right.
I'm saying. I'm saying that
For his personal.
right. I mean, it's the same thing with if I say like a Christian, like when I see there's certain things that Christians do because of the religious, organization that they follow, that they do, and they'll say, this is what I am. This is what I am. I'm a Christian. It just might not be something that I agree with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I look at the person any less. So when I say condone, meaning if a brother said, look, I never told nobody, but if he was like, I date trans women, and this is what I like to do. This is who I am. I'm not going to look at that. And if condone's not the right word, regardless, it might not be something that I live.
Yeah, but here's the thing: trans women are women. What difference does it make?
Well, see,
What difference?
but see, that's where but we're not always going to agree on everything. And that might be one area where we might differ. But at the same time, what I'm saying is that as heterosexual, I feel my obligation would be to be able to allow other men to feel comfortable enough in their own skin where they don't have to go on the low, cheat on their wives and get in situations like that
Right.
where they end up finding out something, or they might already know and then try to keep it on the low, and then they want to kill this person. I'm trying, it comes down to us making that space.
But here's
for
the
them.
thing: but even within that, I mean we're talking about a whole different issue here. I mean first off, there's that whole infidelity thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's a whole different topic entirely. Why did you have vows with your wife and then cheat on her?
Yeah.
See, that has nothing to do with trans, cis, or whatever. That has to do with the fact that you just out here spreading it like peanut butter. Let's just get real on that.
That's true. But
just
the
get-
reason why I say it's still linked to the murders that we see, especially when they're perpetuated by black men, is because a lot of these black men have to keep stuff on the low. And because they keep it on the low, they end up in these situations where now, whether it's they didn't know, but they kind of, I feel a lot of men already know. And then when they feel like it's getting out somewhere or it's public, they start to get into this place where they kill the person. And I feel that's where a lot of stuff stems. But at the core of that, it comes down to black men feeling like they need to hide.
Well, but here's the question: if you ain't doing nothing unbecoming, you don't need to hide. And too often it's been that. When the fact of the matter is, a good number of these cases, infidelity got nothing to do with it. It's just a matter that you dating somebody, you like them, they reveal their tea, and then you're worried about what's my boys gonna say, what's my mama gonna say, what's my pastor gonna say, what's my community going to say.
And then they go into a rage.
But is it that, or is it really like, yo, why did you trick me? You didn't give me the
I
opportunity.
don't think a lot of men are tricked.
Well, no. Well, okay.
I think a lot of men already know.
And I
trick
would.
nothing. Don't even. Let's not even go to that one.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean,
Because
I
the fact
don't.
of the matter is, the vast majority. Here's the thing. Number one, why are you going to put at one level for myself? I tell people my tea up front because it's just safer for me to do it. But at the same time, I'm under no obligation to give you information that my mama don't even know. Now, why are you going to put an obligation on me that you're not that many of you ain't putting on yourselves? For example, how many people are up in here? How many people listening right now know their status?
That's true.
Since we gonna
I know
get
my
re-
status,
since we
but
gonna
that's
get-
true. A lot of
since we gonna
people
get real-
don't get checked.
Hey, no, we gonna get real on
Right.
Saturday morning up in here.
Yeah. No,
If
you're
you're gonna
right.
bring if you're gonna bring Carly on the show, we gonna get real.
Right.
How many people out there?
Right.
I want you to really search your heart, as your
Right.
pastor would say now.
Right.
How many of y'all know your status?
Right.
Right.
Raise your
How
hand.
many know? How many know your status?
Right.
Yeah.
So if you can't tell me, like for example, if you can't tell me your stat, why are you gonna hold me or any trans woman, for example, or a trans man? Because this works two ways. We need to stop erasing. We need to stop erasing trans men. We need to stop erasing non-binary people. We need to talk about this as a greater
collective.
black collective.
Right.
Absolutely.
We need to be really putting these
Absolutely.
issues on the table. So my thing is, why would anyone put anybody up to a standard that you're not willing to step
Absolutely.
up to?
Well,
Absolutely.
so do you think then that when it comes to a man and a transgender woman of color dating, if they're beginning to date, you don't think there is a obligation on the transgender woman of color to disclose to the man that, hey, listen, you may or may not know, but this is what I am, before we go any further?
Like my personal feeling is,
Yeah.
for me and mine, if it's getting serious like that, I bet you better spill the tea.
Right.
Because you need to know where the walls are, they need to know where the wall. But you see, that's not a trans thing. That's an adult thing. That's a relationship thing. When things start getting really serious to where you're looking at a long-term thing,
It's time to disclose everything.
Yeah, you need to put it out on the table and say, this is who I am and this is where I'm at on a lot of things.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with see, a lot of people try and make this a trans issue when the fact of the matter is this is just a being in a relationship issue at the highest level.
But if the reason why I think it still gets associated with trans though is on the trans level is because these murders that are taking place, the fact that they're perpetuated by men, you would have to question, okay, is this because a man found out something, or is this because a man was trying to hide something? Like, why are these specific murders happening perpetuated mostly by men? And I think a lot of times when we start to explore that, somewhere the idea of, well, somebody either did disclose and the person got mad, didn't disclose, and then the person found out, somewhere that might have happened. So I think that's where the conversation starts to be
but to me, too often that conversation, for example, points the finger at me and mine and say, we need to do, and it sounds no different from, well, if you didn't wear this,
That's
or maybe
true.
you didn't show this skin. No. Men take responsibility for your actions.
And this is where
everybody is responsible for your own actions.
This is where my take on it is looking at men and saying,
Yes.
look, listen, if that's what you do, either you need to live your truth, and for men like myself, we need to still create a space where men could be like that and not have to hide.
Yeah, but see,
So
even that terminology you're using is problematic because you're making it sound like it's this thing. You're making it sound like it's this thing that, well, we got to keep it hush hush, or
Well, they
we need
do.
to-
That's what they feel.
That's how they.
That's
feel.
how men. That's how a lot of men feel.
Right.
Well, it's time for us. It's time for society across the board, especially men, to end that. You need to squash that and say you love who you love.
But that's
love who you love.
But that's up to
So,
those
wait.
individuals at the same time. Wait,
So we are actually going to. We're coming right back. We got to take this break. I want to continue this. This is great. All right, but yeah, we're coming right back. All right, so make sure you stay tuned. Electric Drums coming up next. We are gonna come back with Carly Merlot, having a great conversation. We're gonna talk about parenting. We're gonna go more into prison reform and a lot of issues surrounding that. All right, so come right back. Join us. Moving Target, 94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city.
Shoot.
Okay.
So one
So
show's over
are
and we're
we
going into
recording
another
right
show.
Alright.
It's a continuation of it.
Oh, continuation.
Yeah.
What time is it right now?
So it's
8:46.
8:46.
Oh, okay.
So we are still recording, but it's for the YouTube live.
All right. So we're going till
so
10.
we can still
So
keep
we're
going.
going till 10.
Yeah.
No, like
Cool.
9:45.
9:45.
Yeah.
All right, then cool.
All right, so let's continue this,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I'm saying is that when it comes to, I do feel like black men, need to help other black men who identify as homosexual, whatever you identify as. Us black men, our responsibility is to create
more accurately,
space where
we
they can feel
no,
safer.
What needs is straight cisgender black men need to realize that black men are. We need to realize first, as black people are black people.
Right,
Transgender black people are black people.
right,
Non-binary black people are black people.
yeah,
Your gay and lesbian black people are just that, black people.
Right.
That's at the beginning. We need to understand that we're all family. We ain't going nowhere.
yeah, yeah.
We aren't going nowhere. And another level, straight black men and gay black men need to become, and gay black men and for example, trans masculine non-binary black men, for example, we need to come together. We as black people need to come together collective. Black men need to come together as a collective. Black women need to come together as a collective.
Absolutely, right. But look, so understanding the society that we live in and the climate that we live in, don't we still hold some of the responsibility? Whereas if women understand that, you know who you're living around. You know we're living in a world full of savages.
Yeah.
So if you go out to certain areas wearing a certain thing, you may get these certain results. It's not right. And anybody should be able to wear what they want to wear, where they want to wear. It's not right. But just understanding where you live and what you're living in, don't then you have some responsibility to yourself to say, well, let me approach these
remedy
things.
at one level, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's personal, but that does not absolve
Not at
a
all.
collective responsibility.
Not
And
at
that's
all.
a problem. A lot
Not
of
at
men
all.
say that, but then they use that to absolve themselves from their own responsibility for their own actions, and that is
No.
a problem.
No.
But you, like you said, know the society you live in. That's part of the society we're living in.
It's savage. And we
That's
got
part of
to
the
and we
society.
got to and we got to
But
deal
the thing
with
is though, we've got to get beyond the savagery.
Yeah.
Because at one
Yeah.
level, but at one level, because a lot of that savagery. Let's just be real about what that is. It's white people shit.
it is.
And I mean,
It is. And that was my
a lot
other
of
part of
brothers-
that, because,
and
look,
a lot of brothers, unfortunately, try to get drunk on that white patriarchy. What's white patriarchy done for y'all?
Right.
What is white patriarchy
Nothing at all.
done for y'all?
Nothing at all.
But you got a lot of brothers who are trying to sip on that white patriarchy ripple.
Right.
When they're talking about trans women, you can't
Right.
run like that.
Right. That's like going to them saying, yo, we still trying to get them to respect us as human
Yeah.
beings.
All right.
Later for all that.
But
you know
at
what I'm saying? To the
another level,
point.
I've heard this from people I'm close to. I've heard this from family. Yeah, you're transgender. That's white people shit. I hear that more.
You said you said what? Say it again.
Being transgender. Oh, that's white people shit. And I think that's one of the issues that we do see in our communities is that one of the issues that in black and brown communities is we don't realize that there are black parents raising black transgender children. And part of it is we don't see it.
So are
For
they
example,
talking about
when we see trans people like in the mass media, for the most part, we see upper middle class white folks.
right?
Just like 30, 40 years ago, what the image of gay was white, upper middle class.
Right.
Never mind that you had, for example, you had two of the most brilliant thinkers, two of the most brilliant authors among our people were gay. One of the most brilliant. We had some of the most brilliant thinkers among our people. Gay. The tactical brain behind the civil rights movement was openly gay. I'm talking extremely very openly
Martin Luther
gay.
King's
Bayard Rustin.
yeah.
I mean, and now
James
even
Baldwin.
James Baldwin. But you
James
know, people,
Baldwin?
Yes.
Yes.
James Baldwin.
You should be able to
I
tell
can't- I
that
can't
though,
put- I
bro.
can't put James Baldwin in my head. His
Gay.
face.
Gay.
Yeah, he's
Hold on.
gay.
Gay.
Gay as F.
Oh, James Baldwin, the white dude.
No. You better get it right.
You talking about the Baldwin?
James Baldwin,
The-
right?
James.
Michael-
No, you talking about Hollywood, the ball.
Where's Remedy's ghetto pass?
Hold
We gotta
on.
get it back. Where's your ghetto pass?
Yo, that's borderline revolt for real, bro. Are you kidding me? The Baldwins? You just confused James Baldwin with
It's
Billy
early
Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin.
Alec Baldwin.
That's funny, man. Nah, James Baldwin was very, very gay. You know what I mean? I definitely saw that. But
Oh, my bad.
yeah,
Oh my.
My bad.
he was brilliant though. But so even with that, yeah, but that's why I'm
But
saying,
even
man.
now, but even now, we're seeing more. There's more of a space to come out. There's more of a. We're starting to build.
I
more
feel
of
with
a
I
space in
feel
our
with black
community.
men though. It's
I hear
really
still some-
Because
some,
well, a lot of it's just how we're a lot of it is just how black men have been conditioned, how black people have been conditioned in this
right,
society.
right.
But you don't think there needs to be like a safe space, a safe area, while we're making this transition?
Absolutely, no. What there needs to be is conversations within our community, and we need to actually like what we're doing needs to take place at the cookout. It needs to take place in our spaces. It needs to take place where we are. This is not going to get fixed overnight.
It's not.
It's not going to get big. And I mean, there's so many things that we as black folks have got to like we got to work with, and we have to come to terms with. I mean, many of us are still coming to terms with slavery.
I mean,
And
but
with those vestiges, we
you
still come to that.
Look at the dynamic of, it's not just a thing of like black men need to, stand up and this, that, and the third. Because on a whole collective, I mean, look how they're doing. You see some, it's heterosexual black men everywhere. Something goes down and somebody's beating a woman down, and they just filming it. They just recording it. They just
Yeah.
laughing at it. So
Yeah.
the whole,
Well,
You know what I mean?
but so many cultural dynamics need to change.
Yeah,
Need to
we
change amongst our
we just
But
people of color,
it has-
man.
No, but
we
here's the thing,
effed up.
But
Mentally,
yes, we are.
we effed up.
Yes, we are. You
Yeah.
realize there's maybe only 5 therapists, black therapists in this entire licensed therapists in this entire state.
Yeah, for real. When I went look, and then one of them was just crazy young. But yeah, you have limited
there's a
black
lot.
therapists.
There's a lot. I mean,
It's
we as a
crazy.
community have a lot of trauma and baggage to unpack across the board. We
Yeah.
got trauma.
Yeah.
At least I know.
I mean, here's
being
the
in
question. It's a
college,
wonder how black
like-
folk haven't lost their damn mind.
Most resourceful.
Yeah, I mean, especially being in college, a lot of my colleagues, a lot of my friends, a lot of them are becoming like psych majors, and they actually want to get into like, how my generation is so big on mental health, so we might
Yes.
see a lot of more black therapists in our future, especially in the States.
Good,
so.
but
Is your generation big on mental health?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Don't
Heck
seem
yeah.
like it, man.
heck
What-
yeah.
No,
Kids on that lean, they popping
All
Molly.
right, we have
Nah,
the
bro.
extremes, but we
Okay.
Listen,
Like-
bro,
like y'all-
mental
like-
health has never been a discussion
In our
in our
community.
the
Because
way it is
but
with
that's
their
another
generation.
No
stigma.
doubt.
But that's another thing.
doubt.
We talk about
I
because
feel
I have
like
people.
this is just
Hey,
the time
oh,
we
you
can-
see a therapist? That's white people shit.
Right.
Because
Right.
and it's something a brother who's a therapist told me a long time ago. See, here's the difference between black folk and white folk. White folk go see a therapist before all hell break loose. Black folk go see a therapist after all hell break loose, or they were told to go by a cop or a judge.
Right.
He said that's the
That's
difference I
true.
see in the white clients I have versus the black clients I have.
Yeah, but they
And,
still
and
going.
a lot of that has to do with that stigma.
They still going and jumping out a window though after they see their therapist. And
Perhaps.
then their therapist goes to see a therapist.
Perhaps,
But
what's
as
the
soon as
difference?
as soon as a black child's born, they need to see a therapist, and that
yeah.
you
As
know what
soon
I'm
as-
saying?
As soon as we come in, there's so much child. I mean, one thing that all black folk have, we have trauma going back to our childhood.
Yeah.
Because there's things I still remember from childhood that still scar me now.
Oh, definitely.
I'll be a
Being,
witness.
I mean, dealing with learning about racism at 7 years old and seeing it acted upon you
Yeah.
at 7 years old.
Where were you? Where did you grow up again?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska.
I
Yeah.
mean, but it doesn't matter where you grow up. It's been acted upon you in early. Think about the first time where you really understood what it meant to be a black person in this society. You can bet it was about between the ages of 6 and 9.
I had a teacher in school tell me go back where I came from.
Yes,
Yeah.
A teacher in school
crazy.
told me that.
Yeah.
I slapped the hell out of him and got
We were
suspended.
young.
But
I had a teacher tell me,
Real talk.
a teacher tell me, you're one of the polished ones.
Or you're a credit to your people.
Yeah.
When I
heard all that shit.
when I heard that shit, I was, even at a young age, I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Fuck you mean by that?
Yeah. But here's the thing. You hear that at this young age.
Right.
You hear that. Or you see things that happen in your community. You see things. You see, and that doesn't have to be the big things. You see the little things.
Right.
Like when you playing on a basketball team in a tournament, you notice that the all white refs are calling everything on you.
Right.
And nothing on the other team.
Hey,
None on the other team.
They used to do it all the time.
Or you hear the N
I
word.
used to play fearful.
Or when you hear the N, I remember just our football teams playing out in this town in like central Nebraska, and you have adult people calling us niggers.
Right.
And we're like, why are they doing that?
Yeah.
And when you're 9, 10 years old, still you're a child.
Right.
Let me ask you this, right? This is kind of off subject, but what do you feel your blind spots are? We all got them. So do you feel like there is a blind spot for you for other different cultures?
I have many blind spots.
What would you feel like there's things that you still need to develop in and learn and understand more?
I need to develop in terms of our non-binary community, and I think we all need that. That's one of the first things that should come out of people's mouths.
And how
At another level, my blind spot, as far as like, for example, Spoonie community.
What's that?
Chronically ill.
Spoonie?
Spoonies.
What's that?
I never heard that.
Chronically ill people. No, they talk about the concept of spoons as far as what your energy level is for a given day.
No.
Those are things I'm learning more about. I mean, working with my autistic friend, with my friends who are autistic, my autistic peeps, especially in activism, and learning their realities, because that's a reality I don't know. I mean, neurodiversity is something I'm studying because I don't know about it.
Right.
I don't understand why you do like I got friends like why you do a certain thing you do or act a certain way you act or do the certain things you do is because I don't know. I'm not in their shoes. I don't understand their life. So I have to learn, but these are people who are close to me. I have to understand their life to be a better friend, to be a better friend at one level, be a better advocate, to be a better comrade. There's a lot. I mean, we all have a lot of blind spots across the gate.
How well do you,
I never heard the spooning before.
Me neither, man.
Wow.
That threw me off. Yo, we know, transgender people go through, definitely.
But trust, especially among black communities, if you got that cousin who has lupus, they're spooning.
So so it's Spoonie.
Yeah, that it's a euphemism for it. But really, what you're talking about is people who are chronically ill.
So anybody
who have to deal
who's
with chronic illnesses and they're living with chronic illnesses.
so basically, wow, this is fascinating. So basically, because somebody is chronically ill and they're living with it, this now brings their mindset to a certain way of living, of being, and we have to be mindful of that.
No, you have to be mindful of, for example, me, I get up in the morning, run 9 miles like nothing. I'll get up and get on my bike. Like at this time last week, I was in the middle of a 50-mile charity bike ride. I can get up and do that like it's nothing. But like, for example, my friend Alex, for example, a fellow comrade, because of like 2 or 3 different things that they deal with, every day they got to really plan their day out from the beginning. They got to plan to make sure they have enough energy to get through the day without putting themselves into some type of medical crisis. So if we go out even for coffee, we got to really plan out how they're getting there. Or in the case of somebody who perhaps has issues with mobility, where can we go? Where can we go? What kind of implements do I need? Do I need my walker that day? Do I need my pogo crutches that day? Do I need the wheelchair that day? Do I need my wheelchair that day?
And knowing
how they get around
and
how their energy level is, so that they can do this. It isn't like we can just jump in the car and go.
And so learning more about that, now your blind spots are uncovered. So now you could say, hey, before we go, let me see if you need this. Let me see if you need that.
The thing is, though, I have to be cognizant of these things and plan accordingly along with them.
Right.
It's not a matter so much of doing for them. It's a matter that I realize that I may have to alter some of the things I do to better accommodate them and help them do what they need to do.
See that
I mean, those
that
are the
right
things.
there is what a lot of black men are not willing to do in regards to homosexuality,
Right.
in regards to transgender people of color, transgender people, period.
Right.
We don't want to do the work. That's the work.
No, but thing is though,
You know what I'm
that's
saying?
most people. Most people don't want to do the work.
Right, right.
Most people don't want to do that work because it is work. When you have a friend, for example, who's chronically ill, or you have a relative who's chronically ill, it's work.
Yeah.
That involves work. If you're really going to be in the trenches with them, you better be prepared to do work.
Yeah.
We're coming back in 15 seconds.
Okay, you got to be prepared to do a lot of work. Like for example, like I have 2 cousins who have lupus, and yeah.
FM 94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city and home of the Juan Castillo Morning Show. Good morning, New Haven. This is the Electric Drum. I am your host, Jay Kemp, for today, taking over for Yusef Shaw. And, of course, my comrade and co-host of Moving Target in the Morning, Remedy Sharif. What's good, brother?
Peace, peace.
And we have young King Spencer still with us.
What's going on, New Haven?
And we're continuing an episode that we started earlier this morning on the Moving Target show with Carly Merlot. Welcome, Carly.
Great to be here as always, peeps. Great to be here as always. We're going to go another hour with
Yeah,
this.
yeah. We're going to have a really great conversation. We are talking about the structural racism and the oppression that transgender people of color are facing today in society. And along with that, we're having a conversation to bring more understanding about things that we might not really know. We might have misconceptions about certain things. Last time before we went to break, we were talking about a lot of how these murders that have been taking place a lot of times are perpetuated by black men, men period. But from what I'm reading and when I'm studying and researching, a lot of them are black men. And one of the points that I think was that I know myself I was trying to make was that I do believe that a lot of the reasons why black men are that these murders are happening is because black men still today don't, the ones that identify, whether it's homosexual or however they feel, love, want to be, they still don't feel like they can be that. And so they hide it and end up in these situations where I'm not sure if it goes public and they want to now go into a fit of rage and murder the person. You know, I'm not sure exactly how these things actually happen, you know, but I can say that I would hope that brothers that I know, if they do identify as that they feel comfortable enough to say, yo, this is what I am, you know. But I don't think that's the case. I think still in our day, black men will keep, because it's still a stigma. It's still something that it's just not going to be supported, you know.
Unfortunately, in a lot of ways, that's where we are. We have a chance not to be there. but across the board as black people, we need, like I said before our break, we need cisgender heterosexual black people to realize that your rainbow family is your family.
Right.
It's something that Texas activist Monica Roberts says at least once a day, every day. Black trans people are black people. Because I transitioned, I didn't stop being black. Or as I tell people often, those estrogen shots cannot turn me white. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. I didn't stop being black because I transitioned. But to a lot of black folks, unfortunately, I've been told, oh, being trans, that's white people stuff.
Really?
You hear that in black communities, unfortunately. You hear that a great deal. It's no different than really 30, 40 years ago. When we really started talking about gay rights, when we started talking about gay rights in this country and being gay in this community, never mind that being black and gay is something that goes a lot farther back than 30, 40 years ago. It even goes a lot farther back than the Harlem Renaissance. Like I said, these gender differences go back to iniquity.
Yeah.
The whole idea of gender goes back to iniquity. And remember, these are things that have been colonized. A lot of these systems that you're seeing now go back to the pre-colonial era. It goes back to the era of conquest. That's how, in many ways, to justify and solidify the colonial experiment and the conquest experiment involve building the binarist thought that you see often now.
Yeah.
But as far as our community today, we need to come together and realize that the rainbow family is family.
Right.
Is that gay black folk still black folk, non-binary black folk still black folk.
I think there's this still, and this is why I said, like, even in conversations that I have like this, the conversations I don't like to have is the personal belief of how we might view the I know you don't like lifestyle, but the existence, the way that person identifies,
yes.
That personal conversation I think is pointless. The reason being is because there's no fruit from that. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna believe what you believe, I'm gonna believe what I believe. But I think when we start to look at things like the murder, the way these murders are happening, the prison reform, the fact of, certain things on legislation, certain things of even misgendering and how that affects employment. These are things where I feel like, no, as black people, that's still a persecution on black people. And for that, I would definitely still want to support. I would want to vote. I would want to be able to have these conversations. You know what I'm saying? So we could really unpack that, because a lot of those things I didn't know. I didn't really know. I always looked at the misgendering or the misuse of pronouns and what was going on in Canada as a way of them looking at my everyday speech, right? Not thinking about how this affects legally, what happens with misgendered, when you misgender with murder cases, not looking at employment. If the law's not there for those that identify as transgender people, they're not protected as far as them being able to be employed. And like, if they're not employed, what's the normal lifestyle that you usually see transgender people go into if they're not employed?
Well, you're seeing a vast majority of my people either living on the street or living below the poverty line. The poverty rate for transgender Americans is 30%.
Tricking.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes. And even that, there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to unpack there, but let's take it back to the beginning. Let's take it. And yes, me being a Marxist-Leninist, we've come to the point where I'm going to bring some hammer and sickle into your program.
Okay.
I'm just going to let you know this right now. A lot of what we're seeing, one of the things we like to say in the Party for Socialism and Liberation is that, for example, in this case, transphobia is the symptom, capitalism is the disease. And we have a system where it is profitable. It is where bias is profitable, racism is profitable, transphobia is profitable, homophobia is profitable. And one of the things where it's most profitable is it divides working people against their common interest as working people. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. Remember, 30% of my community is living below the poverty line. The unemployment rate is right now maybe 5%, for transgender Americans is 15%. And a lot of this also goes back to the fact that you have a lot of trans kids who are afraid to go to the schools in this country because they're not protected in their schools in this country. Now, in Connecticut is one of the better states to be because in 2011 when the human rights provisions were put in that made gender identity protected, that made it protected. All of a sudden you had grievances for employment, you had protections for kids in school. Especially that's one of the biggest ones for me. Is making sure that when a kid when a young trans child goes to school, they are protected in that school. They will not be willfully misgendered by teachers. They will be allowed to use the bathroom they're supposed to use, and they will be allowed to partake in anything that any other student any other student can do, and any other student has access to, and not get messed with it for it.
I got it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to
Spencer.
interject real quick. How was your experience with sports? I know you said you ran a triathlon.
You was about to say transathlon.
No. I didn't know how to say the word.
No.
I've had, for the most part, I've had largely, in the events I've done, I've had largely positive experiences. I've had positive experiences for the most part.
Do you identify as a woman going in competing against women?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, but there's a lot of rules involved. There's a lot of rules involved in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot involved in that. See, that in itself, we could do a whole show just on.
Oh,
that.
I know.
But
Because that seems like an unfair advantage.
I got.
how so?
Huh?
How so?
Well, hold up before we even get into that, and I want to get into that, but this is where I feel there's a censorship issue, right? This is where I feel when I asked the question, it was a genuine question.
Which question?
When it came down to combat fighting and transgender people, it was a genuine question.
Okay, we're gonna get into we're gonna get into some wheelhouse for me.
So
this is gonna be a good discussion.
But when I asked that question, I immediately got ridiculed. I got judged. I got put
ridiculed in what way?
in a way where I as if I was being transphobic. And I'm like, no, I'm asking a question the same way we would.
Jay, ask the question. Let's
okay,
ask
cool. So just to be clear though, the same way, and I look at this conversation as the same way the conversation was back in the day when we didn't know whether male was gonna fight male and female. Like we had to figure out, are women gonna have their own basketball? Are women gonna have their own boxing? We had to figure that out at some point. We had to look at the facts of that. And we decided that women would have their own. So I feel as though we are now here, but now instead of women, the conversation is transgender people of color, right? Or people, period. So now I ask you the question, when it comes to combat fighting, this isn't a way of being, but more about just the combat fighting and the body structure and all those things that are involved in that. Do you feel as though there are enough regulations put in place to be sure that men who who identify as that and want to transition, are there enough regulations in place to make sure that they're not competing?
Okay, first let's
unfairly.
First, let's get the terminology cleaned up together.
Okay,
that's one of the problems that you're dealing. The pothole you're slamming into is men who no. Trans women are women.
Okay.
Trans men are men. Non-binary people are valid. End of discussion.
Okay.
They do not sound like those TERFs over there in Britain or Martina Navratilova trying to misgender people through the back door. If you're gonna
so you're saying indirect? If I say men identify,
don't misgender.
Okay. I see what you're
tell
saying.
people, don't misgender me in the back door. If you're gonna say I'm a man in a dress, just be you know what? Just be real about it. And do and
see,
and
these
do
are why
that.
this discussion, because I had no idea I even did that.
Be a Donald Trump, not a Hillary Clinton.
No, I don't think she wants me to be.
But the point
she wants you to be
direct.
Right. Don't be indirect.
The whole point is be out with it. Like Joe Clark would say, if you're gonna misgender me, don't F around with it. Do it expeditiously.
Wait, Joe Clark said that?
No, paraphrasing Joe Clark.
Oh, I was like, Joe Clark was swinging the bat around saying that.
Remember the scene on Lean on Me? If you're gonna jump.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's my feeling.
It kills your brain cells.
Yeah. But the whole thing is, and in regards to sports in general, number one, what people got to realize is there's rules to the stuff. Mm-hmm. For example, because right now I'm in the middle of the process because I want to compete I want to compete in nationals next year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to compete in now. As part of, I'd hope to compete at least in duathlon nationals. If my swimming can get better, I'm going to go for both duathlon and triathlon.
Mm-hmm.
But to do that and compete with what I as a female and compete with the gender I am, I have to go through a process that has been overseen by the International Olympic Committee, by the International Triathlon Union, and by the World Anti-Doping Agency. And these are very stringent regulations that say, like, for example, in this case, my testosterone limit can be no more than 10 nanograms per deciliter.
Yeah, because right now
And that's a hard limit.
you could throw hands right now. You could kick somebody in the chest and cave their whole chest in.
Yo,
Actually, no.
But those same
Actually, no.
But
I'll disclose that. No, I'm below that limit now.
But
Okay,
are those
okay.
same regulations in place for regular combat fighting or boxing,
Yes.
or those
Yes.
same regulations
Do
are
you
in
think it
place?
should-
Regulations are in place across a whole spectrum of sports. For example, the UFC adopted those regulations in 2010.
So now let me ask you this: so
These regulations are largely across the board. For example, if the sport's in the Olympics, you can bet these regulations are in place.
so do you have to keep taking? Is it a shot or something to keep your testosterone level that low?
There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's
Oh.
like 4 different androgen. There's like maybe like 8 different androgen blockers that are used.
Okay.
Depending on the person. Obviously, everybody's different. Everybody is different.
And how
So-
close to the start of whatever event it may be?
No,
How close
no,
are you
the way
tested?
the way it works is that you have to get it under there, and then you have to keep it there for a full year. And every time you take a blood test, they got to get a copy of it.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So you have to
every time,
be.
you got to be on top of it.
You can't be Brock Lesnar, who's massive, and say, "Oh, you know what? I
Yeah,
really
no, that's
identify
not-
as a
see,
woman,"
see,
and
but
then
that's
go.
what a lot of people think.
Right.
A lot of people think, oh, I can just say, oh, I'm a woman today, and then show up. That ain't the way it works.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
that's not the at the elite level especially. That's not the way. Not even close. And there are very stringent because like most recently you had the controversy with Martina Navratilova,
Yeah.
tennis Hall of Famer, who was talking about some dude, like some guy is going to decide, you know what, some guy is going to come up and decide, oh, I'm going to be a woman. I'm going to be a woman, get in the woman's draw and make a ton of money. Or I'm some dude, I'll say I'm a woman, be on a WNBA team and make a ton of money. It's not the way it's going to work.
Actually,
So what about the ones in school?
Okay, now I'm glad you asked.
Right.
Because now we're getting into
We've seen some girls get crushed.
and you saw some girls get crushed. Didn't happen this year.
What?
Because I know who we're talking.
Crushed in what? No,
'cause I
yeah,
know who
wrestling.
we're
Crushing,
talking
crushing the
about.
races. They were racing. They were running a race.
You're talking about
in
the track
school.
athletes.
The track athletes. I'm sorry.
You're talking about Andrea Yearwood and Terry Miller. Now, first off, these two are high school kids, and they have been, and they are African American high school kids. These are our children. These two are black kids, and they have been vilified and targeted by every right wing, dead wrong, clickbaiter website imaginable, and they've been called everything from a child of God. And as a black person in this state, especially, I find that appalling. And I'll stick up for those kids all day, every day, twice on Sunday.
It's
and
appalling.
it bothers me
But-
that not more black folks
but
didn't
wait,
speak
but-
out. For example, when the Alliance Defending Freedom, or as I like to call them, the Alliance Defending Fascism, put up their complaint. They put up a complaint with the Department of Education a couple months back. In fact, a month ago. It was like June 17th, 18th, where they basically said the CIAC's regulations, which allows a student a trans student to participate in school activities and athletics as the gender they identify as, which is state law in Connecticut. Let's be mindful. This is law here. This
It
is
may
the
be
state
law, but
law.
is
This
it
is
fair?
state law.
But is it fair to those girls, to those however the case may be? Is it fair to those children?
And just when I asked,
There are two levels I can answer that question. One level, since when has sport ever been fair?
Well, at least at the
I
level
mean-
of you're competing against the same gender.
At
least at
one,
that
I think-
level.
but I think-
but we're talking about two high school girls here competing with girls.
what I think gets lost though in this conversation, about this topic is the fact that I'm looking at it from a science perspective. I'm not as well versed to know, but from a science perspective, when it comes to bone structure, when it comes to all of that, if there has been no hormones taken, if none of that stuff has been done on this level, don't you think on science that there is some type of advantage?
But you see, there's the thing. The jury is still out on a lot of this science. And in fact, a lot of the science that we have is showing that the things that we think we know, we really don't know. For example, the IAAF 2 years ago did a study of 600 elite track and field athletes, men and women. And they found that, for example, at least half these men, including some Olympic medal winners, world record holders, championship record holders, national record holders. Now, men, mind you, had testosterone levels under 10 nanograms per deciliter, which is the limit that trans feminine competitors have to be under, and they found that the third were within what's considered quote unquote cisgender female range. A third were like below what the new limit they want.
Does that have to do with diet at all? Like if they're vegan or if they're eating a lot of soy?
It could. I mean, and actually, the whole idea behind soy in a lot of ways is overstated.
Okay.
But the point is that different bodies have different ranges. These ranges are all over the place. There is no set range per se. And the more and more research that we're finding, the more we're finding this out. And there's really only one way we're going to. But what it comes down to in a lot of ways in terms of sport is that more research needs to be done. And there's only one way we're going to get the research. You got to let people compete. You got to let people participate. That's how you get the research.
Good, Spencer, let's go with that, and then I want to go into parenting.
Okay, yeah. I just had a question. Hypothetically, this situation might not happen for years to come, but could you see like an open gender event where gender, regardless of the gender, both sexes can compete? Do you think that would be a good answer to this problem, or it'll be problematic?
But here's the thing: you already have open gender events, especially in like ultra distance events. For example, there may be a men and women's. There may be, for example, a men and women's division, but we compete together. We compete together. I mean, I know women who go out and win overall wins at road races. I mean, there's so many variables involved, and there's so much work and study that still needs to be done. My biggest thing is we need to cut the hysteria.
No, but
we need to replace hysteria with reason and with study. We need to stop shouting at each other and study.
The last thing
and for God's sake, quit targeting kids who just want to live their lives and compete.
But that's still hard because at a school wrestling match, at a high school wrestling match, I can't see.
It's the combat sports
at a school wrestling match, if you got a transgender woman competing against other women, she's going to be slamming her around on the mat.
On a high school level.
On a high school level.
By what determination are you saying that?
By determination.
There was I'm sorry, cut you off. Not too long ago, there was a transgender.
I know who you're going to talk about, and I'm going to tell you right now because I have a feeling you're talking about
three-state time.
No, in Texas, Matt Beggs.
Yeah.
By the way, met the kid, great kid. Here's the thing with Matt. Matt Beggs, it was a transgender boy, but because it was a transgender boy, he competed in high school. He competed youth division in USA wrestling competitions where he was allowed to compete as a boy because again, IOC weight regulations apply there. And he followed them. He was on testosterone. He was in testosterone. He was a boy at school, boy all the way around the board. He's a boy. The reason why he had to compete as a girl is because the United Interscholastic League in Texas, which is one of the two governing bodies Texas has for high school athletics, has a rule saying the ruling that they made in regard to the issue was you have to compete as the gender marker that you are on your birth certificate.
And on his birth certificate,
it was an F.
Okay.
So They forced him to compete as female.
So do you
He
think?
didn't want to do it.
So do you think in that situation?
Now he's in college. He goes to a small NAIA school in Georgia where he competes as who he is.
So do you think
Male.
in that circumstance, it was, even though he was forced to do it, do you think even then it was fair?
I understood why he did it and supported why he did it. To me, he could have lost at any point. And there were matches during the season where he did lose.
I thought he went undefeated for 3 years. They said.
There was one match he did lose the first year.
Okay.
The first year.
All right.
There were matches he did lose.
But I guess where I'm looking at it is
And
just
just like this year at SciAC State Opens, I'll give you a hint. Neither Terry nor Andrade won the 100 this year. In fact, all this talk. See, here's the thing. They say all these trans women are dominant. If trans women are dominant, I have a question for. If trans women are all of a sudden dominating women's sports, I have a question. Since 2003, there have been regulations for transgender participation in the Olympic Games and in the world championship structure of the world governing bodies within amateur athletics. Now, how many transgender Olympians have there been since then? How many transgender Olympians have there been? How many transgender Olympic qualifiers have there been?
out. No, I mean, not many that I know of. I don't follow as much.
Zero.
Okay.
Zero. I'm talking qualifiers, not medalists, just people who were able to get in the games. Zero. The number of world champions, zero. The number of medal winners at a world champion, one medalist, 2 medals. It was in weightlifting. Neither were gold. And that just happened 3 years ago.
So I don't want to be, because like you said, this could be a whole show within
this
itself.
Could be a whole nother show.
So
the point is that there's a lot, and across the board, when you're dealing with trans issues across the board, there's a lot of hysteria, and I encourage people don't fall. I tell people a lot, don't fall for the okie doke. Don't fall for the okie doke.
So do you
because that's
think,
what people like Tony Perkins and James Dobson, the Alliance Defending Fascism, all those people, they want to demonize trans people because they've said it openly. We don't want these people to exist in our country, and we really don't want them to exist on our world. And for example, the memo that came out last year from the Trump administration that basically says things such as the Department of Health and Human Services and the Centers for Disease Control cannot use the word transgender in any publication or in any official discourse. For example, they're trying to erase people. And the way that they're going to sell otherwise decent people on it is with this demonization and this clickbait and all these things. It's no different than what they did to black folks 40, 50 years ago. It's no different. It's no different what they were doing.
Still doing now.
And they're still doing it.
so let me on the end of science, and I wonder, like, even with parenting, you know, when you have parents that have 5-6-year-olds that they are transitioning, you know, how does a parent how do they make sure that the child isn't having gender dysphoria, gender nonconformity, early experimentation? Like, there's all these medical terms that could be reflective of what they're experiencing that child. How does a parent actually know my child at 5 years old, you know, because even off of any emotion, whether it's transgender, homosexuality, just heterosexuality, it's hard for me to think that a child really knows unless they actually go through life and grow. But for a parent, how do they make that decision if they're not really confirmed through science and studies enough?
Well, at one level, for example, there's a doctrine called insistence, consistence, persistence. You really just have to be tuned into your child, listen to them, be focused in on them, and just kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on. If they're insisting who they are, consistent in it, and being persistent in it, chances are they may. And it could not. I think the biggest thing for parents is just, and this is what the bulk of parents whose children have transitioned have done, is listen to their child. See, that's another one of the examples of the demonization we're seeing, that people actually believe that parents push their kids to this. No, it's just the opposite. Parents, no, there's no parent that's pushing their kid towards transition.
Do you-
This really, I mean, you ask any parent of a child who's transition, they went through a hell themselves to come to a peace with it. It's not an easy process. People
you
think
think-
this is not an easy process for anyone.
Do you think parents, like, because when I was researching, it's almost the same that you're saying, even with the sports, the combat with competing in sports, there's really not a lot of science to really show that at 5, 6 years old, a child could determine that they are this.
Well, there's more and more sciences that's come. There's more and more research that's coming out. We still need more, but it's like anything else in medical science. Think of it this way. Right now, we're sitting at a table. That, like, for example, the coffee cup in front of a remedy represents everything we know about the human body, the human genome, the human psyche, everything. This entire room represents everything that has not been discovered. And this is a pretty decent sized room.
Right.
There's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot more. But my thing is, let's continue to have the studies. Let's continue to have the conversations. But you have to but what's blocking a lot of this knowledge is the hysteria that we're seeing out here.
I think I think some of that is, I think that some of the hysteria is created because when you look at a child, we as people are the ultimate protectors. Those that are mature, we are the ultimate protectors of these children.
Exactly.
So when it seems that a lot of times, do we realize how long it took sometimes us as grown-ups to know ourselves fully and truly?
Yes.
We go through so many different variations of who we are at 5, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9.
Yeah.
Even though you feel, you may be in tune, does that child really know and understand? Is that, feeling, or is it a phase?
But
Or is it like, come here, boy,
No, but
take
you know
that
what? It
dress
could be-
off.
No, but you know what? It can be either or. The point is, hey, kid, if you raise kids, kids are crapshoots. But one thing that we have now, well, come on, we all were a crapshoot. We all could have gone a different way. But the biggest difference that we're seeing now is there's more information, there's more access, and there's more knowledge now.
Right.
Because this isn't new. See, that's one thing people have to realize. What you're seeing is not new.
But
We went
parents
to-
need to make sure that they're really getting that information,
But
and
that's
that they're
yes.
not bringing their personal.
But yes,
But
yes, exactly. But the first thing everyone needs to realize is this really isn't new. The thing is, though, it could be new to a lot of people because it wasn't talked about. I mean, for example, I had an idea of where I was when I was 11 years old. But there's a big difference between being an 11-year-old now, where you have clinics where you can go, and there's information where you can go, and there's books written about it, and there's info, and there's supportive people that you can talk to. When I was 11 years old, it was 1982, where we were still think about where we were as a society in 1982.
Right.
I mean, let's take we weren't even ready to really deal with B&T yet. We were still dealing with GNL, and the biggest way we dealt with GNL in this society was AIDS. Let's just
True.
be real of where we were mentally then.
Yeah.
Where a lot of us growing up, maybe less so King, because King's younger, we could where a lot of people in this room we are still trying to wrap our heads around
Just us three.
Yeah,
everybody else
Well,
is
the
like-
point is that when I was coming up, definitely, if I had come out and at 11 years old and said I'm really a girl, I probably would have had parents looking at me like I'm from Mars if I wasn't getting that belt. And if I had portrayed like this at 11 years old, I had a choice. I could either like act on these feelings that I still didn't understand then, and get beat up every day, or suppress these things to survive.
We got to understand these conversations for real, man, because I can imagine. I'm just thinking about it. My son, at 11 years old, coming to me, Dad, I think I'm a woman. I don't know what I'm.
Where are you gonna go? But see, this is where to the conversation we were having.
Go in that mirror and look at your penis, please.
But this is where the conversation that we were having before we came back was. I asked you, Carly, what were your blind spots?
Yes.
And you said, look, my blind spots, and you mentioned people who are living with
chronic illness.
chronic
I'm talking about
chronic illness.
I'm talking about my spoonie peeps.
Yeah. So even looking at that, and when you talked about, well, I learned this, so then I knew that I had to. And at first, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so if they're living with an illness, then you want to make sure you give them this. And you said, no, it's not even about what I give them. It's about what am I able to change and alter in my own life for them.
Yeah. What adjustments do I need to make in my discourse with them so I can be a better comrade, be a better friend, be a better
and see, in that sense, like what you're saying, Rem, that is work where it's like, now if it was my child or if it was a close friend of mine, you know what I'm saying? And I had to now do the work of saying, okay, I have to learn. Number one, I got to understand. And once I start to hear conversations like this, I'm like, oh, so that means when I do say a man that identified as woman, yeah, that's a no-go.
Right.
You know, I didn't know that. So now it's like the adjustment, you make that adjustment. As a parent, I could only imagine how much now you immerse yourself into a world where it's like, yo, I have to learn all of this because my child is this, make these adjustments, understand this language. That is work that a lot of people aren't willing to do.
Not willing to do at all. And I think that's one of those things that you will never fully understand how to deal with it unless you have to go through it. That's one of those, you know what I'm saying? You'll never really, because I'm just,
hearing, I'm imagining.
Right, imagine, absolutely.
I wanted to transition.
Good word. Good word.
Everybody like, Jay's transitioning. I wanted to move the conversation into the prison reform, because this is another area I never thought about, that if will a trans woman be able to go to a prison of all females, or would they have to go to
in Connecticut? Yes, but
really,
it took a serious fight for that to occur.
Okay,
even if you still got male genitalia.
Well, see, first off, why are you looking at anybody's genitalia? What
do you mean? No, I'm asking you, even if just not you personally, but that person.
Yeah, you talk about the person who does the crime and is going to prison.
Oh, wow.
Yes, if they identify as female, that's where they're going to go.
Right.
In Connecticut.
That's where they're going to go, in Connecticut. In about I think it's like 12 states in the union. That's where we're at.
Wow,
that's where we're at.
But
in this state, it took a lot. It took a long fight to get that.
And how do women feel about, as far as with that?
Well, you've probably heard more of the strum and drang about what you're hearing about in the UK in regards to this. In regards to this.
Okay.
That's where, of course,
I'm not sure what's going on.
No, there's a lot. Basically, there's there you've had the trans exclusionary radical feminist, and they shouldn't be calling themselves feminists, because if you're a feminist, you're a woman. You stand for all women at all times, and you stand for those who, and you also stand for. You also validate non-binary peoples at all times. Basically, you validate all human beings at all times, and they don't. There's talk about, well, if we let these trans women in women's spaces, then it's going to be deadly, because really they're men, yada yada yada. The prison reform, to me, the prison reform issue in some ways is the clickbait. What we're really talking, all we're doing is ginning up a lot of fear towards going back to the same old tired bathroom argument again, or locker room argument again, because for the most part in prisons, we still have a lot of work to do in regards to that. Mm-hmm. We still have a lot of in regard, but in prisons in general, we have a lot of work to do in regards to human rights.
Cause see how the mind works. Like I promise you, God forbid I ever do something and I got to go to jail, I'm identifying as a woman. I promise.
So you could go to.
But that's not quite the way it works.
How does it work? And when you you continue to take care?
That in itself is the biggest thing. There's still a lot of gatekeeping involved before you get that.
Okay.
Where there's still before you get that. I'm not up on all the regulations, but I do know there's layers and layers and layers of gatekeeping.
And when you say before
you just can't come, so you just can't roll up one day and say, I'm a woman officer. That's not the way it works.
That's definitely the route I would, if I had to go for some reason.
If I had to go, I mean, when you going to do some time,
Yeah. Bring me to dynamic.
Let me put it this way: you don't want to do time. You don't want to do time anywhere.
No,
Not at all.
No,
Not
not
at
at all.
Come
Not
on,
at all.
come on. We black folk.
not at all.
But I'd still-
I don't know.
If I had to choose, though,
No,
Yeah.
if I had to choose, I'm choosing to live free.
No
and
doubt.
See, and that's the bigger issue that we have to look at. The bigger issues that we have to look at beyond this issue is number one, how the system perpetuates the hysteria we're seeing, how the system perpetuates the unemployment rate, how the
Right.
system perpetuates the violence, how the system perpetuates the violence, how the system perpetuates mistreatment by law enforcement. That's the bigger problem.
Yeah.
That's one of the bigger problems we're seeing.
I saw-
is the mistreatment by law enforcement. How law enforcement, if law enforcement, for example, knows that you're trans, you're 5 times more likely to be arrested and put in jail as a sex worker, whether you are one or not. Like, for example, I could be walking down the dang street and be picked up, or whatever.
Especially
But
depending
because
on what
somebody
street
knows
you
it.
on here in New Haven and
Yeah.
wherever. But
I mean,
yeah,
the point is that's
Yeah.
the even bigger issue is the way trans people are treated by law enforcement.
Yeah.
If we are in a situation that involves a violent crime or whatever, how we are misgendered, we're less to be believed, we're more likely to be misgendered. And in a case of, like, say, if you're murdered, you get misgendered in the police report, and then you get misgendered by Channel 8.
So
Or you get misgendered by the New Haven Register.
I did read that there were organizations that were doing workshops and courses for police officers to know how to positively engage
Yes.
with. So how does that look, though? Because to me, it's like, yo, just respect the person, but what are some things that they need to know?
The biggest thing you need to know is address the person the way they wish to be addressed. So in other words, dead naming is enough, and this not just for the police, but across the board.
Across the board,
Don't
yeah.
dead name people. If someone tells you what the pronouns are, you're not edgy, and you're not a free speech warrior. You're not edgy if you decide to misgender them. You are just a jerk. So don't be one.
Right.
And that goes double for kids. If you are a school, you know what I would call a school teacher that said they would willfully misgender a child? Fired. What would I call a person in a professional office who says point blank, I will willfully misgender you? Fired.
Yeah.
You want to put yourself in the breadline because you want to be stupid.
right.
See,
And that's just helpful hints from Heloise across the board.
yeah.
Across the board, you don't want to do. I mean, respect for people. I mean, we say respect for people, but the fact of the matter is, these trainings need to happen, simply put, because people are not doing that. If it was just a matter of just people, like, if we had a society where people would just think about this stuff, we do it.
No doubt.
Problem is, you have a lot of people who think in the other direction. They feel the need to say no. I have to stand against this. I have to crush it and I have to kill it. So I'm going to stand with my misgendering. I'm going to stand for disrespect. That's why unfortunately we need this sorts of training, and not just in law enforcement, but in education, in housing. Oh God, especially in housing.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the laws we have in Connecticut, housing discrimination for trans people goes on.
So I want to continue, and we do need to continue these conversations. I want the people to know where to find the work that you do, and on top of that, open more space for people who are listening, young people as well, to know that, look, you're available where we can continue this conversation in other spaces.
Well, one place, obviously, contact us at www.psl.org for starters. There's a number of groups here in Connecticut. In fact, one of the places I highly endorse is the New Haven Pride Center just down the street. Just down the street, they have a trans youth group. They have trans adult groups. There's a lot of good information to be had. There's a lot of information to be had. In fact, in many ways, New Haven has become the trans hub of Connecticut in a lot of ways because there's a lot of us here. And keep your ear to the grindstone and keep your ear to the ground and also shows like this, efforts like this, they're all over the place. They're all over the place. And also the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask questions. The only dumb question is one you don't ask.
Don't ask. And remember that oppression is oppression.
Yeah.
Oppression crosses all lines, all
Yes.
barriers. Oppression is oppression, and we need to fight.
Especially
and stand
for black
together.
people.
We need to fight
Well,
and
see-
stand together to try to fight against oppression.
But see,
of
that's
all
the biggest
people.
thing for black. That's the biggest thing I tell my black family, and I want to talk to my black. I want to take a quick minute to talk to.
Yeah, we're
to talk
gonna
to our
wrap
black
up
family.
right now, but go
yeah,
ahead.
to especially to my black heterosexual and cisgender family. We LGBTQ black folk are your rainbow family. We are at your cookout. We're in your church. We're in your workplace. We're in your community. We're teaching your kids. We're coaching your kids. We are your next door neighbor. Because we affirm and live our truth, we didn't stop being black. And we understand the oppression. We still live the oppression. And we are out there fighting. When those two kids got shot at by those Hamden and Yale police officers, there were black LGBTQ folk out marching. There were black queer folk out marching. We need, I'm saying this, we need you to do the same for us. We need you marching alongside us. We need you because nobody's getting out of the black race alive. We have to hang together or we will hang separately.
Carlene Malone, thank you so much. We're going to definitely have you come back because we got to continue this. 94.3 WYBC, the rhythm of the city.
Peace.